I was miserable in the job that I was in, first of all. And, but I wasn't miserable because it was a bad job or a bad situation. I was miserable because I was ignoring my calling. And I think even trying to put it off and not listening to what I needed to be doing, which was telling stories. And it's not to say I couldn't still do the job and tell the stories, but it wasn't working in that situation. And so I had to walk away and get a new environment. And so, yeah, it was a huge leap of faith, but God was in it every step of the way to where we could never really question it once we began.
So you wrote, as I understand it, the first book that you released was called The Secret Life of Sarah Hollenbeck.
Yes.
And your most recent actually is going to be out here in the next few weeks. It's called The Do-Over.
Yes.
And you have come to our booth today from what's called a personality party here at the CPE event, where you've been signing copies of that book. So a number of people here at the CPE show get kind of an advance copy.
Yes.
So you actually had the opportunity for a publisher to take that first book.
Yes.
Yeah, I know I'm jumping back and forth here, but that first book back in 2017 was picked up by a publisher. So tell me just a bit about it. What were you exploring in this story?
In that first story, in The Secret Life of Sarah Hollenbeck, it was the story of a woman who, in a very different way, was kind of dealing with some of what I was dealing with, of taking a completely different path in her life. And she was actually a steamy romance author who then became a Christian. And suddenly the world knows her because she was very successful, this character. The world knew her for one thing, but she no longer wanted anything to do with that. And so it was following with her on her faith journey as she figured it out, in her mid-30s, divorced, just single again for the first time since college, and suddenly well known for a career that she no longer wants anything to do with. And suddenly she has this new faith and trying to figure all that out. So it was, when I started writing that story, I was just telling a story that needed to be told. I didn't actually realize that there weren't maybe so many stories that were kind of, I guess, a little bit edgy like that one in the comedy aspect of it. And so, everyone... I got a lot of then comments about how it was going to be difficult to get it published and the Christian market wasn't ready for it and all these different things. But I think that wasn't necessarily the case. I think we're ready for new stories and new ways of telling them.
Well, Bethany Turner joining us today here at Faith Radio Meeting House Media Central at the Winter 2022 Christian Product Expo in Charlotte. So we were talking about your first book that was released. You've had several books throughout the years. Your next one is coming out here in a matter of weeks, called The Do-Over.
Yes.
So when you sit down to write a story, what do you believe are some of the critical components of a good story?
I think for me personally, as I have to know my main character's voice, and I have to know why do we want to listen to her? Because I do write in first person. So I want every story that when I sit down to write it, I want us to feel as if this is a girlfriend of ours that we're sitting having coffee and she's walking us through her life. So when I get to the crux of that, it's, okay, why do we care what she has to say? And so the personality of that character is one of the biggest things. Then once you get to the story, there's the old standards of, I write romance. Of course, we need an irresistible hero. We need we need something, the question in my books, it's never a question of whether or not they'll end up together, but hopefully we'll really enjoy the journey as we see how they get there and who they become along the way. So, yeah, those are the biggies.